Hey Xers and honorary Xers, I'm Dee and this is my BFF and feline life mate Stud. Remember when snow days were actually fun? Before online learning, Zoom calls, and working from home? Well, if you're from the Northeast or anywhere close, you've probably heard the legendary tales of the blizzard of '78. I'm talking about snowdrifts taller than your dad's Vista Cruiser, and towns like mine that were literally frozen in time for days on end. Today, we're diving into one of the wildest weather events of the 20th century. Let's crank up the nostalgia and maybe send a shiver or two down your spine. Grab a blanket because it's about to get chilly. So here's the setup. It's Sunday, February 5th, 1978, and the weather forecasters are doing their usual thing. They're being kind of vague, they're being kind of ominous. Some meteorologists warn about a major storm, but honestly, a lot of people shrugged it off. Like, whatever, another winter day in New England, no big whoop. Spoiler alert, it was a very big whoop. People in New England were used to getting unpredictable weather. In fact, you want to hear a joke? Who can always lie at his job and get away with it? A New England weatherman. Anyway, what was heading our way was the perfect storm. Literally. It was a mix of two weather systems, warm air from the south and cold air from the north, and they collided right over the northeast, including right over 11-year-old me in Connecticut. This wasn't just any snowstorm. It was like Mother Nature had a hair across her ass about something, and she was getting ready to open up a can of whoop-ass any minute. Unlike a typical nor'easter, which usually delivers steady snow for 6 to 12 hours, the blizzard of '78 unleashed relentless snowfall for a whopping, I kind of said it again, 33 hours. This prolonged intensity was due to a high-pressure system from Canada, which stalled the storm's movement into the North Atlantic. So here's where shit gets real. The nor'easter, originally called Storm Larry in Connecticut, hit on Monday, February 6, 1978, and let me tell you, people were not ready. Because everyone thought this was just another BS failed forecast. So everyone had gone to work and gone to school as per usual. But by the afternoon, the snow was coming down hard, at about 2 to 4 inches per hour. Per hour! Imagine trying to keep up with shoveling that. Spoiler, you can't. The majority of the snow fell mostly from late Monday morning, February 6th, to the evening of Tuesday, February 7th. A real problem with timing since this beast of a storm hit right in the middle of rush hour on Monday. People were trying to get home and bada bing, bada boom, whiteout conditions. The highways turned into literal parking lots. Thousands of cars were just abandoned as drivers couldn't see 2 feet in front of them, let alone drive in the dangerous road conditions. You know, these were the days before salt brine, that stuff that they put down on the roads ahead of a storm to prevent icing. Anyway, so many people were stranded in their cars along roads throughout New England. In fact, 14 people died from carbon monoxide poisoning on I-95 near Boston because the snow piled so high, it prevented exhaust fumes from escaping their idling vehicles. Eventually, I-95 had to be evacuated by cross-country skiers and regular folks on snowmobiles. All told, more than 3,500 cars were found abandoned and buried on roads during the cleanup. For those at home, the blizzard of '78 left many without essential resources like heat, water, food, and electricity for well over a week after the storm ended. Around 10,000 people had to seek refuge in emergency shelters. The damage was extensive, with about 2,500 homes severely damaged or destroyed, and 58 lives lost, many due to downed power lines from the 110-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Tragically, several people in downtown Providence, Rhode Island were found dead, likely while searching for shelter near the police station. The storm also brought transportation to a standstill, shutting down much of the interstate highway system throughout the Northeast, with some sections remaining closed for days. Even air and rail services were halted, further isolating the region. Governors in these affected states declared a state of emergency, and the National Guard was deployed to assist with clearing the roads. Additional troops were even flown into Boston to support the effort. It took 6 days to remove the snow and the vehicles buried beneath it. In Connecticut, Governor Ella T. Grasso, who had to walk the last mile from the governor's residence to the emergency command post at the state armory on account of the conditions, closed all roads to non-emergency travel for 3 days, a move mirrored by Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis, who implemented similar restrictions in his state. Depending on where you lived in the state of Connecticut, we saw upwards of 15 to 30 inches of snow and snowdrifts up to 15 feet. Once the storm passed, the cleanup was massive. It took weeks to clear roads, and schools were closed for what seemed like forever. Kids like me, we loved it, obviously. My grandfather had our driveway and walkways cleared out pretty quick, which made easy work of getting outside to build snowmen, snow forts, and snow angels. However, fun times were not had by the adults in my town, since large chunks of ice from Long Island Sound were washing ashore, blocking access to neighborhoods and roads. In total, we saw about 18 inches of snow, less than other parts of the state and the Northeast as a whole, but it was still enough to paralyze the town for days. But regardless, it didn't stop neighbors from being, neighborly. Communities came together like you wouldn't believe. People were sharing food, clearing paths, and checking in on the elderly, as we should. The scenery was, it was like a Norman Rockwell painting, but with snowblowers and frostbite. Needless to say, the damage from the storm, it was insane. There was coastal flooding, beach erosion, and property damage. The blizzard of 1978 caused over $520 million in damages across the Northeast United States, which translates to roughly $2.43 billion with a B in today's terms. This figure includes damages from disruptive economic activity and widespread property destruction across affected areas. Of course, this storm came in second place to the Great Blizzard of 1888, a snowstorm that paralyzed the East Coast from the Chesapeake Bay to Maine, with some areas back then receiving up to 58 inches of snow and 50-foot snowdrifts. The Blizzard of 78. For some of us, it's a badge of honor to have lived through it. If you're loving these dives into the big events that shaped our Gen X world, smash that like button and hit subscribe. And hey, if you've got your own Blizzard of 78 memories, or your parents', drop them in the comments. I want to hear all about your snow forts and epic sledding adventures. Stay warm out there, and I'll catch you in the next one. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.